Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life.
I want to welcome a woman who could explain a lot for us ladies. My guest is Davin Lee, and she is an intimacy coach for women who feel a deep, unmet sexual longing. That is all I'm going to say, because I'm sure Davin is going to explain to us exactly what that means. And I am looking forward to this one, definitely. So Davin, welcome to you. And please tell us a bit about yourself and explain to us this comment about unmet sexual longing.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to talk about this topic. I'm imagining some listeners will go, oh, deep unmet sexual longing, that touches me. I don't even know, like, what is that? What is there still for me? Is there more? What is possible? Does this mean I don't need to give up on myself? Those things may be coming up for some of your listeners. And this is, our sexual energy is so first of all, sexuality is an energy. It is a part of us. It is something that moves and expresses through our bodies. And in my work, I agree with many wisdom traditions, which is that our sexuality and sexual energy is actually part of our life force essence. It's part of the seed of ourselves. And so when we haven't fully expressed this, when we've been disappointed, when we've been told we need to be this and not this, and it needs to look like this, and you're doing it wrong, and you can't quite get it, and this is the only way it's supposed to work, we can really get devastated and disappointed and give up. And yet we may still feel a deep unmet sexual longing, a sense that this is not the way it's meant to be, that there is something we haven't experienced that we are looking for, we want to experience. And also something about ourselves that we want to express, that we know is inside of us and we haven't been able to fully express it. And what would it be like to be able to express that in its fullest form, both for ourselves and with a partner? So that is where I step in and help women listen to their longing, find their longing, track their longing, and begin to help them release the old sexual stories, heal those sexual stories, unmask, unveil the things that have been covered up or the beliefs that have gotten stuck in there that keep us from expressing ourselves fully, and help women find their unique sexual energy, which will be naturally connected to their unique longing.
Okay. So I'm taking this to be two aspects of us. It's that's desire to be recognized as a sexual woman and to enjoy our sexuality, but also to be recognized as a person who has those desires that have been put down. Because if I understand history, women were never supposed to enjoy sex.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
have I taken that correctly?
It is so dangerous when women enjoy their sexuality and express it fully because you can't contain a woman who's in touch with that part of herself.
Totally agree.
And in fact, this is something that women fear about themselves is if I open up this part of me, it will be uncontainable and I won't recognize myself. I won't be able to live the way I've lived. What on earth will happen if I let this out of the bottle?
And if we don't,
And if we don't, part of my story, I came to this work from being in an unfulfilled marriage and the longing of my soul. 17 years of a marriage where intimacy had basically died between us. Um, my wonderful therapist couldn't help. My friends had no suggestions. They were in marriages where there wasn't much intimacy as well. And I wondered if I needed to sacrifice this part of myself for the good of my marriage. But I felt a part of me was dying. And that felt like too big of a sacrifice. And ultimately, I left my marriage. And in turning towards my sexuality and what I call the sexual soul, I found that it wasn't just sexuality that wasn't working in my relationship. There were many ways in which I couldn't be fully expressed. So there comes a time in a woman's life when they do feel that they are facing a choice between staying in something where their soul is dying or stepping into something that could change everything in their lives.
okay. So how do you get to express yourself once you step out of that marriage? And I
Yeah.
can relate to what you're saying totally. How do you then express yourself?
Mm. Well, then you begin a journey of getting to know this part of yourself, as I did. I started learning practices from sacred Taoist sexuality. And this is where I learned that our sexual energy is synonymous with our life force energy, that it is. So, the beautiful understanding from that tradition is that our sexual energy comes into being at the moment of our conception, that sexual act of sperm and egg meeting and becoming ensouled. That energy is like a big bang energy that is our life force, our creative energy, our procreative energy. It is our sexuality. And it is uniquely ours. Each of us has a unique code of being in that energy. So I was led into those practices and learning that understanding of sexuality. And when you understand it as the powerful energy that it is, the powerful creative life force that it is, there is these traditions teach that the energy needs to be cultivated like a garden. So, on the one hand, of course, it's our wildness and we want to release our wildness. But this energy can take us into places where that might not be good for us, that might not be nourishing, that might ultimately be depleting or damaging. And so, to learn to cultivate it and in my work, I've made it so simple where we need to be grounded. We need to be connected in our bodies. We need to heal our sexual past and our sexual wounds because it's our trauma patterns that will repeat, the unhealthy attractions, the unhealthy relationships, the unhealthy experiences. And then to, I also, one of the major frameworks for my work is what I call the power of the yin being the deep, the dark, the slow, the subtle, the quiet, to bring the yin energy in to ground our sexuality and to so sexuality can get hot, right? It can go very fast. And that's when we can kind of lose control. And of course, it feels beautiful to lose control in many ways. But the to bring in the grounding of the yin energy kind of leavens that energy. It helps us to approach a very powerful energy in an integrated way. So not in a fractured way, but in a way that we can, it's integrated into all the parts of us. The other thing is that our sexual energy is not something that should be compartmentalized just to the bedroom and just to sex. Because it's our life force, it wants to express in desires of all kinds, in pleasures of all kinds, in delights of all kinds. And that is what leads us to create the unique life, to make the unique choices that we make. So when this energy is integrated, it becomes a support. It becomes we're accessing our superpower, really.
Okay, so how do I put this question? So I, for one, love dressing up, looking sexy.
Mm-hmm.
I know my power colors. I know what I get excited when I put them on. But I can also understand for a lot of women, they feel guilty for wanting to enjoy the pleasure of wearing beautiful clothes, of wearing sexual underwear, of even just having the pleasure of doing something that makes them feel good.
Yes.
How do we get around that then?
Oh, well, of course, we're all carrying layers and layers of shame around our sexuality. And we've also been taught that our sexuality is for others, that we need to conform, we need to perform. This is how we get love, this is how we get safety, this is how we feel valued. And because this is our life force energy, it is first and foremost for ourselves. And this bumps up against all that old conditioning. It's quite a radical thought. So I love what you're sharing about the pleasure that you take in dressing yourself up for you. Um, and it is a big reclamation to take that energy back for ourselves.
Oh yeah, it took a lot of work. It certainly took a lot of work. One thing I also recognize is the fact that I go from size to size. I can be quite large and then I can be quite slim. But it's recognizing that size is irrelevant. It's how you feel about yourself. Regardless of how you look externally, that is totally irrelevant. It's how you feel about yourself. That took a lot to adjust because obviously, as a bigger woman, I know there's a hell of a lot of judgment about size, especially with marketing as those lovely slim ladies. Yeah, they're all about that. But it doesn't deflect from the fact that it's regardless of size, it's how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A woman, I mean, first, okay, so talking about size, first, we have to name the male gaze because it's almost not even a relevant topic unless it's put up against this idea of what men think or what men want, which actually is just has been distorted by the culture as well. Men like all kinds of women, shapes and sizes. But at the end of the day, the truth is How do you feel in your body? Does your body feel healthy? Do you feel embodied? Do you feel pleasure? Do you love the way it feels to move? Do you love the way, the clothes that you get to pick out and wear? How you feel when you're not wearing clothes? So the marketing box of sexuality is so narrow, and it's such a devastating lie for all of us because we are all deprived of this unique, each of our unique selves, which is what's really actually sexy. If you think about um, the allure of meeting somebody, and what's exciting is what you don't know about them. It's like the mystery of them. And each one of us is a unique mystery. You can't go to a movie and see a woman who looks a certain way and then assume that every woman who looks like that is that woman or man or human being of any or non-gender identity. And so that's where things get exciting, and that's where attraction lives, and that's where we want to create with another being. We want to bring our creative energy and make something completely new, and we don't know what it is. And that's when things get exciting.
Okay, so something. Okay, so sexual attraction. Obviously, we all have our unique appearance, our unique smell, our even our sense of well-being within ourselves is a sexual attraction to whoever, whether it's male or female, whether it's an actual relationship that could turn into something, or else it's just a friendship. It's
Mhm.
To me that seems irrelevant because it's what the person is and that emotional connection that is created that matters regardless. Is that correct?
Of course.
Oh, I'm getting somewhere.
You're getting everything you've said is spot on, of course.
So how do we understand that perhaps more?
Well, to me, our task is to become ourselves fully and authentically. And and that's not an easy task because that word authentic, I'm pointing right to our essence again. I'm pointing to the sexual soul because that is the truth of us.
Mm.
That energy that came into being at the moment of our conception is our unique truth. And it is also the place of our deepest vulnerability because we're not hiding there, right? That's our true self. And so we all have moments usually from a very early age when we have been injured in that very vulnerable place of our truth. And so we've learned to cover it up, manipulate it, hide it, make it look like something else, ignore it, wish it would go away, try to be somebody different. And the more we uncover and become the person that we originally came here to be, and not it's not about not having our lived experience. Then we layer in, our lived experience, our learned lessons. And this is the place from which we will be attracted and will attract from our essence and not from our pretending or from our protections. Um, and we're attracted to all kinds of things. We're attracted to all kinds of people for all kinds of reasons. We are attracted to opportunities. We are attracted to places. We're attracted to experiences. We're attracted to ideas and visions. Yeah.
Okay. trying to formulate the question I want to ask without being. I'm conscious of we are recording this for the general public. It's a question that wants to come out, but I'm trying to put it in such a way. Right. We obviously, something we haven't talked about is the Kundalini effect, which
Yes,
is
okay.
that opening of the Kundalini for women,
Yeah,
especially.
yeah.
Can you explain that a bit more as to what that would mean for a woman?
Yeah, so first I want to say that the Indian tradition of sexuality, Tantra, Kundalini yoga, is not my tradition that I've studied. But of course, I know about it and hear about it a lot. And I experienced my own, what would have been described as a Kundalini awakening that was quite intense and overwhelming, actually.
Yeah, quite agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. The kind of thing where you're sort of on the edge of
Yeah,
your psyche.
yeah.
Um, and I had some support, but I probably could have had better support. Um, what I have noticed is that there are women that will come to me who work with Kundalini energy or have had that kind of Kundalini awakening. And it's exhausting. It is scary for them. It's overwhelming. It creates a kind of desire um, that they can't control. It's kind of running their life. And the what I learned in Taoist energetic practices is that we're not just, so what happens in Kundalini energy is the energy starts rising. The images of a snake, coming up from the sacrum, from the pelvis, from the sexual center, upwards towards the head and on towards the heavens. And in Taoist practices, we actually work with an orbit where we're cycling the energy. It comes up, but then it goes back down towards the earth. And I actually think this is even more specifically important for women, which is that our energetic movement is not from earth to heaven, it's from heaven to earth. It's coming down. We give birth, we bring spirit and soul into physical form. The feminine energy moves down into earth. And so I mentioned grounding. When this energy starts to move, yes, it can rise up and come through, but it needs to return. I think of it as returning back to source in the earth, in our bellies, in the base of our bodies. The other thing I want to say is that, I mentioned how sexual energy can feel quite hot, and the cooling of the yin that helps to moderate and cultivate that energy. Um, our genitals are where our root chakra is. So it's actually uh, a place that is an anchoring. Our sexual energy can actually be anchoring and grounding, but we haven't learned to experience it that way. We've learned to bring it up and heat it up fast and sharp, which is more of a masculine or yang model of sexuality. And I actually don't think it serves men very well either, because they're missing their yin experience. Um, so that's what I have to say about the Kundalini energy. That's an energy that needs to be cultivated and it needs to be circulated and brought back down to the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do appreciate that and understand that. So one thing I would say is we are both man and woman. We are both male and female, obviously, and that's part of what you teach, I'm assuming. So how do women accept that they have that connection both with their masculinity and their femininity? How do they manage that? Because that is part of their sexuality.
Yeah. So, and this is essential in my work. I call it harmonizing the yin and the yang. So, I would say most of us, Western women anyhow, have really become over practiced in the yang energy, in the outward, the results oriented, get to the orgasm quickly. Um, what do you have to show for yourself? You need to look like this. You need to perform in this way. You need to have these results. And we haven't cultivated the yin, the internal. We feel it, we sense it, we have our intuition, we have our cycles that take us into the dark moon time, but we haven't, we're not used to trusting that aspect of ourselves. It's not a part of ourselves that we can articulate because it doesn't fit into language. So there's so many ways that that part of ourselves has become devalued. And I have to say that many women that I've worked with and have come to my workshops, when we start to slow down and allow space for their sexual soul, it opens up this well of longing to enter into a sexual space that does not have any attachment to results, does not have a time frame, that is basically, it's like the water element. It just flows and flows and expands and expands and expands. And so a lot of women, and I was one of these women, because I was so over practiced in the yang energy and in the yang side of my personality, I didn't know what it was like to actually surrender and receive. And I didn't believe I could trust a partner in such a way that I could surrender and receive. And that's one of the things I started to experience when I left my marriage, is finding partners and me stepping into that place, which changed the dynamic intimately. And I touched a part of myself that I had never really known before, that opened up my desire on a whole different level. So I'm saying this because when we talked, the first question you asked, what is unmet sexual longing? Is that some women may feel sex is just not for them, or they aren't turned on by sex. They've never had a partner who they've felt good with. And that, in my experience, can be because they've never touched this yin aspect of themselves. And when they do, something changes and desire comes back online. And then you can return to a different expression of the yang. And then you begin to have this, what is really how yin and yang work, which is they're constantly turning one into the other, into the other, into the other. And soon you're not even quite sure which one is which. And that's that place of undifferentiated wholeness. That is part of what we are longing for sexually, actually, is that kind of merging.
Yeah, it's feminine. We should be whole. There's no reason why we shouldn't be. And I think that's one of the problems is we've been taught that we're not allowed to be sexual and it's wrong to want to be sexual. And that has a knock-on effect in everything we do in life because we're not allowed to be that whole being.
Yeah.
Society's expectations. So I'm conscious of the time. So I would say here that if you want to speak to Davin or you want to connect with Davin in any way, I will be sharing Davin's information, obviously, in the podcast details. But what would the one thing you would say to any woman who has yet to realize that she can be a sexual being?
Your sexual energy is for you. I invite you to reclaim it just for yourself.
And that's a brilliant point to end on. Thank you, Davin. It's been absolutely fascinating to hear and discuss such a personal topic.
Yes. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.